Hi everyone, I'm Estelle. I am part of the CIA NEXGen community and currently working at SmartCrete CRC. Thank you all so much for coming. The Future Concrete Leaders event is just really a very casual event for us to bring not only the next generation but the experienced generation as well. And it's really an opportunity for all of us to have the conversations we're probably not having outside of technical, to really talk about how we as an industry can grow together and move together. And when we refer to NEXGen, we're not just talking about the younger people of the industry, we're talking about what the future of the industry looks like as well. So we have an amazing keynote speaker and our panel as well. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're joining today, which is the Turrbal people and the Yagara people, is that correct? Yagara people, sorry, here in Meanjin, which, yeah, we'd like to acknowledge them and make sure that we pay tribute to them as well. That's all I have to say. We'll obviously run these sessions and then we'll do a bit of networking after. But I'd like to introduce Greg Van Rooyen, who's our keynote for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. To be here, when I got asked, and it's like your wealth of experience. I'm like, yeah, and then talk to young people about what I've done. So I'm quite excited to do this a little bit, but also realising that you're probably not more older gen than next gen. It's a little bit. But nonetheless, just a little bit of housekeeping, unless everyone's not familiar with the office. The emergency exits are just
follow me.
Just around there. If the usual typical alarms go off, someone will appear with a red helmet to lead us out, and we'll all congregate on King George Square if that happens. The ladies and gents, just again to your right, out the door, left and right. It's signed. Anything else? Yeah, there's someone will help you out. So I guess my name's right up there. Greg, I work here at BG&E. This is our offices. And yeah, I suppose I'm in my 30th year of engineering, a little bit more, but we're rounding. When you've been around this while, you just round. When you start rounding to the nearest 10, you know you've been going. And yeah, it'd be really good just to share with you some of my journey and where I've been. Hand up here. And look, the theme really is around lifelong learning. And I suppose I drew short to do this because at my ripe old age, I decided to go and do a PhD part-time. So it's maybe that means it's never too late. It could also mean I'm a bit silly. But I guess the things are around that half of what you've learned when you studied engineering will almost be outdated in 5 years. So I started working the Port of Durban in South Africa in 1993 after graduating. And I suppose when I started doing that role, there's a lot of technology we have today that didn't exist. We didn't have mobile phones, first of all, so when you went out on a site inspection, you were gone, right? You had a little name tag on the board in the office and you said on site, and you put a little red dot that, you know, if anyone rang for you, Greg's on site, and they would see you when they saw you. So that's how it was. And then I remember, must have been about 96, we got our first site contact phone, and it was about this big. It had an aerial on it about that big, and it's like a big, massive walkie-talkie. But you could only ring people within your business. It was some sort of hybrid phone. And yeah, you just left it in the car because it's definitely too heavy to carry around site. So I say technology is going to change. What we do is going to change. In 2005, I came to Australia in between and then started working for Boral Concrete in concrete manufacture, because while I was working at the port, I realised I was fascinated by concrete. I enjoyed working with concrete, and I managed to go on some training courses back there, which is, it's sort of like, we had something called the Portland Cement Association over there, and you could do your London City and Guilds concrete accreditation. So I've got to do that. So I did that, which is like concrete basics, concrete practice type courses we had here. And then I came to Australia and I started working in Boral, and it was more of a clerical role, working in audits, doing audits. Then moving on to being a laboratory manager, so I managed the Boral laboratory, doing all the concrete testing and quality control for a period of time, technical supervisor, and then around 2005, I worked my way through a few positions, become technical manager at Boral, looking after concrete manufacture production. And look, that was a very exciting job. Once again, when I became technical manager in 2005, alkali aggregated concretes, geopolymer didn't exist. It existed, but not anyone was thinking about it. We probably never did anything. We didn't even think about carbon. It didn't exist, low carbon. We just made concrete, right? Without a care in the world. And I've been doing that a few years, and then, in the theme of lifelong learning, decided it's probably a great idea if I, formalized some of the practical knowledge I had. And so I did a master's science in advanced concrete technology, and I joined an organization called the Institute of Concrete Technology. And yeah, that was fun, that was interesting, and it really honed you a lot around academia and study and learning and getting a real understanding about some of the products you do. Of course, by that stage, alkali activated materials and geopolymer were very much in the thing, and my research project was on the carbonation of geopolymer concrete. So I've got a nice fundamental understanding of the advantages and disadvantages of that material, which again, 20 years before didn't exist when I studied. So there is sort of this half-life, whatever you learn is only good for a period of time. And then I finally decided I had enough of that and started to do consulting. So now applying all that experience and knowledge back to a variety of clients and knowledge, and started getting a lot more involved in the CIA and other projects, and then SmartCrete came along and his learning was there. And then once again, I was sitting around and do I watch Netflix or do I do a PhD? And decided I'd take the next step along that and started a late age PhD, which is, I'm busy with at the moment, which is very interesting. But, and I suppose change is inevitable, right? Change is everything. The same, like nothing changes except fashion and furniture. I don't know how true that is. But, so that every 5 years or so, you really need to think about where you are with your engineering knowledge. That it's changing, it's moving on, things are happening, and where are you at? So there's a bit of, and a lot of this is keeping up. So, if you're a member of the Institute of Engineers, they're going to force you to do CPD, right? And a lot of this is about making sure that you're doing ongoing learning, continuing professional development to ensure that you kind of at least keeping up with the trends. This is McKinsey Global. I went looking for some statistics on what's changing in the market. Of course, between AI and digitization, they're sort of saying by 2030, 85 million people are going to be out of jobs. They're going to be doing different jobs, right? So that's where your skills need to change. And what we've seen it, I've probably seen it through my career. So we didn't have Excel, Microsoft, we didn't have Excel. We don't have any of that stuff. I mean, there's probably Microsoft Excel is probably one of the most invasive things that happened in my career, right? We don't do anything, like nobody does their job without Microsoft Excel or similar. So you kind of think about it and you go, well, back then, you know, when I started, the organisation I started in was actually going through a massive change at the moment because they're retraining that typing pool, right? 1993, they were retraining because the Port Authority had a typing pool of about 30 people that worked in there, and their job was to take your notes and type up reports. I know, right? That's how it worked. And you kind of go, they realized back then word processing was coming in, we're getting our first computers, and people were going to type their own reports. This was life-changing. There were guys my age that are now, back then, who were like seriously wanting to quit their jobs because they'd have to type their own report. No one even thinks about that anymore. You just type your own report, right? So, you know, it's keeping up. Those changes are going to happen, and they've been happening. You just forget about them a little bit because you live in the moment. So, I suppose I like this one, my curiosity. You know, and I meet people and I go, oh, I like that person, they're an askaholic. Right? They ask questions, and they ask good questions, right? So, how do I find it? Where do I learn the answers? Right? And then, your expertise really is that growth and learning and what you gain. And a lot of it, don't get me wrong, happens on the job, right? Because we're all going to go through a progression, and you know, we work here, we're in a consulting office, and you go graduate engineer, experienced engineers, and you build your skills and you build your knowledge base, and that's your advancement. But when I go back a slide and I think about the changes, you've also got to be thinking about there's a bigger picture in life. So asking questions, you know, become an askaholic. And then, don't just keep on, just be curious, you know. What's her name? Carol Dweck, I think it's an odd name, that's why I remember it, Carol Dweck. She writes some stuff about all of this, like the change mindset. I'm not a fan of self-help books, right? I hate them, right? Because most people can't do what that stuff is like. We live, our lives are different, but every now and again you'll find somebody who might find something that'll break through. And there's some work there around growth mindset, which is a lot of this kind of stuff. You know, finding learning opportunities in what you do, or expanding beyond what you know you may be asked, even if it's only for yourself. All right. This is a bit like there's a lot of information here, but I'll try and work through it. So. Okay, so there's a. I think this might be a little bit of a couple of authors, but my experience is a few things. So learn in public. I'm learning right now. I'm gaining some experience. I haven't done a talk like this before, right? I've done a lot of technical, where I feel very comfortable. It's technical because I know what I'm talking about. Happy to present. This is a little bit more stressful. It's all white shirts and present and I had to give a presentation to CA years ago, and it was on concrete thermal cracking. And then I saw who was in the audience, and I was like, honestly, so I'm going, these are some of the most respected professors and engineers. And I was like, oh my God. So, I probably spent the week before just reading everything again. And when I did the presentation, I left, I went, you know what, I've just spent 7 days in a deep dive learning, just in case I got a question from one of these people. So learn in public. It makes you think about what you're doing, and you know, even preparing presentations, you've got to think quite a lot about, and writing papers. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that in conferences, institutes that impact of your interest. Community. I mean, I suppose I was fortunate that when I started my role in borrower management, very supportive and said, Greg, we want you involved in Concrete Institute. So I would say so much of my learning and knowledge came actually from attending seminars at the Concrete Institute. And it's in you, and you meet people, and you know how to, you learn to know who may know what you want to know. It's probably the key there. And project-led learning. Like every project you do, there's opportunity for learning. We do what we call OBM durability reports in the materials team, and you'll encounter new things, new design, new stuff. It's kind of in that CPD space where it's ongoing professional learning, but be aware of it and enjoy it, I think. This is what I'm trying to learn to do right now, is protect learning time. So allocate some time and make it a bit normal for yourself. And then of course, formal study alongside your work. So I suppose it's in my experience, I've kind of backstopped my experience with formal learning. You know, so if you do an undergraduate degree, it's kind of the other way around. You kind of do the degree, then you go do the practice. I'm doing my postgraduate kind of studies have all been more, I've kind of done the work. Now I'm formalising it academically. It is hard. I'm not going to pretend it's not hard, because there's a whole lot of things. If you're going to do formal study and work full time, there's a lot of social life you're going to have to put aside. And I'd say that's probably the biggest factor in the long gaps between when I have done formal study, is you've got kids and you've got life and you've got other things that you want to prioritise over spending what should be 20 hours a week turns into 8. I would say though, a little hint is if you kind of got the knowledge from your work, the workload in formal study is actually a bit less, because you'll get there a lot faster than what an undergraduate student would. Build a learning system. I'm trying to do this with our good new tools called AI, even at my age. Is they can do things that are quite powerful. I don't know, nothing's inevitable, but it's really it's just going to be part of how we do things going forward. It's just a fact. I don't think we need to worry about that anymore. It's a tool, it's something we can use. It probably already knows things about you. Probably about a year ago, I hopped onto ChatGPT because this was work, you know, CIA committee commitments and PhD study, and I was like getting a little bit, I don't know what to do next. So I hopped on it and I said, I'd like some help in prioritizing everything I have to do right now. If I chuck my diary at you, can you like help me meander way through my next couple of weeks? And it came back to me and said, hey, you know, hey Greg, would you like help with your work at BG&E, your PhD, or your work at the CIA? And I went, how did it know? Right? It already knew what I was doing because I've been asking it other questions and recognized you and knows what you're doing. And then I kind of went, hey, hang on a minute. This thing can be a little bit of an assistant. So now you kind of go, okay, I can ask it some questions, I can tell it what I'm doing, and it just helps you organize. So like to me, that's a great tool. It definitely helped me put this presentation together. So fast. If I can do it at 55, you can do it. All right. So where does it all go to? Where does it all end? Well, like I say, life happens. So you kind of have at some point. I don't know when. Don't ask me. But you'll have a mortgage, kids, and everything else, right? And then it just takes up time. But a more practical thing like tutorial hell. Like I'm probably going to contradict myself a few times here. This may be one of them. I spoke about courses and webinars and all that. They're great. I put them in the learning at work kind of category. They're normally, you do it more job focused, or you've got to break outside yourself a little bit. But really, it comes down to application. Like if you go learn something and then use it, it'll be in. So, shiny object syndrome, just chasing after what is the newest thing. So don't use things unnecessarily. Presenting to a whole bunch of engineering type people, you're probably already people who think about fundamentals and first principles anyway. So I wouldn't be too bothered about learning that. And really share, work with others. And another one in your career, boss, not yet, we're good. Don't wait for permission, right? No one is going to do it for you. It's you, it's your career. You really have to take the bull by the horns. And if you want to go somewhere and you want to learn something and you want to do it, you kind of have to push through. You have to make it happen for yourself. And I've got people in this room who work for me, so I kind of feel a bit icky now. And your career is kind of your responsibility. So I got people in the room who work for me are finishing up tomorrow, and I can't hold that against them either anymore. But it's that kind of thing where I try to share. It's a fairly personal journey, and it'll take you on roads you don't even know yet. But think where you want to do. But that's the learning. The learning part is trying to formalize that. So I think I've kind of covered this a little bit through the career that, there's definitely stages where the learning is on the job, what you're doing, learning how to do a new role. When you move to a new role or get a promotion, it all changes again. It's all on learning on the job. Lock it in. Don't do some of that shiny object stuff. Make it count. And then, as I mentioned in my thing, the incrementally I've backstopped what I've done with formal statement, where the opportunity's been right between, juggling the balls of your family life and your social life and all of your life, which is, well, I'm not saying gets in the way, but there's definitely, you're going to have to go onto that ChatGPT and help you prioritize things. And yeah, you can do it. Not easy, but you can. So anyway, I'm going to hand this over to you now because I'm saying it's the learning that you do over your life that builds your career. That your degree opens the door. So your job in the next week is to pick one of these things. You have to do them all, but in the next week after today, you need to block 30 minutes tomorrow or next Friday for some deliberate learning. You need to join a professional body or a technical society. and you need to commit to presenting at one of your next team meetings on something you've learned. And if you've been putting something off, it's time to do it. And now I'm happy to talk to you about any questions you have. That's it.
Did anyone actually have any questions for Greg? Because I do. I have lots.
Go for it.
I could probably ask you after. Does anyone actually have any questions? We don't normally do this after a keynote, but I feel like I walked away with a lot of questions. So, does anyone?
You may ask a question.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Can you suggest the skills that we use all the time, because the technologies keep moving and changing all the time, but there's something probably we can keep in mind.
Yeah. I'm gonna get called out by the team now. Yeah, I just don't have time. I just don't have time. Or yeah, I've been known to pull the you wouldn't ask your dad that. Right? It's like you're at home and you go, Dad, just give me the remote, but then your boss at work's the same age, right? So no, it's yeah. Look, we all do that. I find that I have to overcome procrastination, right? That I kind of go, yeah, I've got time tomorrow. I'd rather do, and you know. And that's why this is why blocking things and committing time is important. Because, and again, one of the challenges of doing part-time study as well as work, like work gets prioritized. And you always seem to have, more time next week than you do this week, right? Like the future, you know, you don't account for the unexpected in the future. So it looks like, hey, I'm running out of time this week, I'll let that slide and I'll do it next week. But next week looks the same as this week, you know, and then I'll find I've got to push myself over that procrastination and probably the future bias of there's more time. The master's degree study was different to the PhD because in that we had very set that, like because you're doing assignments and the assignment's got a due date, you don't miss a due date, right? You'll get it done for the due date. PhD is like very open. You know, you've got years, right? And it's one of the mental problems is that you kind of go, doing it part-time, you've got 6 years to complete. And I'm telling you, that first year disappeared so fast, and I had a bit of a wake up and went, you know, if you said that what I've produced is a year's effort, that's pretty embarrassing. And I realized that I need to kind of shift the focus and get it. But yeah.
What technical societies have you been in?
So years ago I joined the structures group at the Institute of Engineers. Realised it wasn't for me. You can always try different ones. Yeah. So look, it was very interesting, and again, good connections, get involved in Institute of Engineers, because we'll probably have to be connected. You don't have a lot of choice not being a member of the Institute of Engineers. Sorry, I know there's not everyone's an engineer, but it's probably bulk of young people. But so it named a lot of societies in there. Obviously, my passion, I learned early on, was around concrete. So the Concrete Institute of Australia, which kind of brings me out today in the interactions here, was an obvious candidate. But yeah, look, I mean, I've got you in the corrosion. You know, there's the Corrosion Association. I know the other ones. There's, you know, if you want to get deep into structural engineering, you know, you're a designer, and that just, you know, Institute of Engineers is a good one, and then there's iStruct-E, they do events here in Brisbane. it's quite interesting because once you start in, you'll find there's interest groups, I guess, around.
Throughout your career, have you noticed within the industry that you work within, do you feel that the thirst for learning has become more prevalent? Or do you feel like they were learning back in 1993? Not even in a formal sense, but this, I guess, knowledge transfer.
I think it's so much easier now, right? Because so when I was back early technical manager, there was no, like Google Scholar didn't exist. There's no internet, right? So first of all, anything you want to learn, you'd have to go find a textbook. So your library membership was pretty important. But again, you learn through people through. So your major place you learned was at the institute that represented what it is, the Concrete Institute in my case. And that gave you access to, I guess, academia. It gave you access to conference papers. So a lot of what you're picking up came from conferences. And then of course, and this is probably part of where it's changed, because back then the Cement and Concrete Association of Australia, which is the body of concrete manufacturers and quarry, actually had a library that kept papers. So you could actually, and every month they would issue like a new publications list, and then you just respond to the librarian, so the permanent librarian, and you'd say, hey, can you send me this on elastic modulus, because that's what you're kind of into at that point in time, you know? And then they would send you like a wad of hard copy pages in the post, and you'd receive this package of papers, and it'd be so exciting. Yeah, look at nerd. And then you'd have, you'd get all that information, and that's how but I suppose the transition to more electronic means and the accessibility of things on Google now, if you wanted to find that same information. So in terms of that, again, that's not the formalized learning. In that, I think these sort of forums were very rare, and I suppose to some extent, I think there's a lot more understanding of people graduating now and young people now about this than what we had. Because when I started in the beginning of my career, we didn't think about any of that kind of stuff. It was just like you went out, you did your job, and you expected to just do your job. Whereas now I think there's a lot more acknowledgement of changes and learning, and I think a lot more enthusiasm in young people. I think most of my group are graduated with just went to do a job, and I know some of them that are still doing that job. So it's not, and so to some extent, everyone who's coming out today, you're already interested, right? We've already got you on the hook because you've come, right? So you're already part of it, wanting to learn and grow and know the group. We probably all know some of your colleagues, maybe on.
We're all nerds, basically.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Greg. Another round. Brodie Chan from Port of Brisbane, Thuc Nguyen from GHD, and Olivia Alexis from BG&E. I was going to put you guys up. Should I sit in the middle or? Yeah, why not? I did have questions, but actually, firstly, round of applause. I did have questions, but a lot of them have actually now triggered from Greg's speech. So I have a lot of questions I want to ask all of you. Before we start though, if you could just give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are, what you're doing, and ultimately how you kind of got to where you are now.
You can start.
I was like, I'll just let Brodie Olivia Alexis, I work for Greg. No, no, it's great being in this team. I've been in BG&E for 6 months now. So I was previously in the cement industry for around 6 years. So exactly what Greg spoke about, like I had a passion for concrete and cement. Even though my background is actually civil structural, I just got into cement and I kind of stuck with it. But I got to a point where I was just like, I need something more. And so I ended up here at BG&E after having some discussions with Greg informally just about, I'm looking for more. What do you kind of propose? And he's just like, come work for me. I said yes. But no, Olivia, Alexis.
Thuc Nguyen from GSD. So I think it's amazing from Greg that he's doing PhD now. So, yeah, for me, a bit of formal learning before moving to the consultings, but yeah, got my master and bachelor degree in Southeast Asia, and then having my PhD at UTS, graduated in 2021, and then yeah, it's quite a big decision to move to the industry in 2022 to GSD. So it's been a few years with GSD so far in the concrete in material technology group.
Awesome, thank you.
Brodie Chan from Port of Brisbane. Probably not a linear one for me. When I was going through my university degree, started out in construction, so actually pouring little shitty pieces of concrete footpath, of which then translated into working in materials technology similar to Thuc. So I worked for a consultant for a number of years, and then went, well, just want to see what life's like on the other side, working for the asset owner. So instead of being a piecemeal approach to where you do a part of a project, you don't necessarily see it through to completion, or you can't influence the outcome. You want to see how the big end of town lives. So moved to the port and I've been there for almost 7 years now.
Amazing. So the theme of today is lifelong learning. I'm going to come back to you, Olivia. When we say lifelong learner, what does that mean to you? What do you first think of?
Just constantly learning. Finding ways in which you can learn, I guess, grow your knowledge. I think for me, knowledge is power. You can go much further, in my opinion, when it comes to what you know and also who you know. I think we can forget that at the end of the day, you need to obtain your information from either people or, whether that's different types of tools. So I think for me, it's just the constant want to learn.
Yeah, I think that's super valid as well. It's something that we do forget about is the network that you grow in that learning and how you actually, like, as we said today, this sense of knowledge transfer and being together, but meeting those people that can help you learn along the way. Thuc, for you, what does lifelong learning mean?
I think the first thing come to mind should be like Greg did mention before, but stay curious for whatever we are in. So by staying curious, to keep us asking the question and learning actively most of the times in different ways. But yeah, that is the first thing. And of course, like Olivia mentioned, the network is important. An example when I joined GSD is that we have to review a sort of concrete mix design. Greg is so familiar with that. And it's a big report, and I said to the boss that okay, I got it on Monday. I said okay, it's gonna be I'll get it back to you next Monday. It's a week for the review that report. It's too short for PhD, right? A week. But she said, mate, they're pouring the concrete tomorrow. That's when I start picking the phones and phoning people who know the things. So I think that helped a lot and made the work much easier, not only for learning, but yeah, helping the work progressing, and then we get time to learn more.
Just while we're talking on that, is time the biggest thing that you've learned moving from academia to industry? Like, what was the biggest, I guess, learning curve for you when you made that move?
Definitely. I think the formal learning, like PhD, master, give me a lot from technical understandings and always ask the question why, and have sort of ability to dive in and get to the fundamental understanding of things. But moving to the consultings or to the industry, it is I think very fast progress. I think we have to get the work done in a very short time frame. So it changes a lot in terms of learnings, where we learn, how we learn, and how we can get the work done. So time is the key, definitely, to get to have enough learning in a short period to get the work done, and then to keep learning to top up to whatever we going to do next.
And I haven't done it, but is it like completely changing your mindset about how you approach work?
Yeah, definitely. I have 3.5 years for a single question for my PhD, which is my PhD topic. But moving to the industry, still a day or two, whatever we have to get the work done and to get enough knowledge to make the decision. I think it is it's completely different.
Yeah.
But on the other side, the technical understanding that we have, and I have from the PhD, and the fundamental things that always ask why, and then keep getting the understanding of the things that support a lot for the learnings while moving to the industry.
Yeah, you really need a bit of both. So
Exactly.
yeah, awesome, thank you. Lifelong learner.
I think, when everyone thinks of learning, everyone thinks of the formal education that you get through your bachelor's, through formal courses that you may do. I think, probably picking up on Greg's points, probably see it as like that longer term, more holistic approach. Like, I used to work with someone who would say every day is a school day, and that's what it is. Like 70% of your learning comes through all those conversations that happen around you. So, and I'm probably fortunate to sit on a committee with the likes of Greg and Kip in the room. At the end of the meeting, or at the end of a committee meeting, well, I can't afford Greg's hourly rate, so I can but I've read something and I can just go, oh, Greg, what do you think of this?
There's a beer tax.
Yeah, that's right. One is cheaper. So I think for me, a lot of it is just all the things you pick up on your job, having that network around you to be able to ask questions and learn from, because everyone has that cumulative experience you can draw on.
Yeah. Greg, I'm going to bring you in as the fifth panelist here.
I
was actually going to ask you another question, but please.
Yeah, no,
go.
I love it. I'll probably pick up on a bit on. The PhD and work are like chalk and cheese. They like. So work you only need to do enough to answer the question. And the PhD, you dig. You just keep digging and digging and digging. So it's a pretty different approach. Like I say, they're all on it's people, it's interaction with people, a lot of it, and that gives you a lot of the on-the-job stuff. It'll make you better at your job, and you'll learn a lot there.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
As we obviously progress into the future, and some of these, even you mentioning that geopolymers were discussed back in, 2003 or something like that?
Yeah,
One of those dates
you...
But it's something that we're still talking about today, and there's lots of different materials, lots of different technologies that are coming to the market. We're finding them a lot in research, but then not actually seeing them commercialized. Where are the barriers for us actually learning together on this?
Yeah. So I think the commercialization is literally that. Like if you can't make a buck, it ain't gonna happen. So, but look, I think a lot of I think there's a few plots there. One is there's like an overall industry confidence in a material and a product. So I suppose one of the challenges in construction materials is risk. So it's pretty expensive to build something in the first place, and it's pretty expensive to keep maintaining it. So there's a very big reluctance to be innovative because of the potential impacts and long-term impacts, and building up that fundamental base knowledge, and again, it's part of why all this, and it's part of why things like SmartCrete are actually important, because they do broaden that out and they do share that, and there's a means, because then, well, it's not like they did, but you know, there's probably a lot of knowledge and confidence in, say, the academic world about some of these products. There's geopolymer things that probably they're not even being researched that much anymore, because, you know, when you want to get up funding for a PhD, it needs to be some novel value. It has to push the envelope or be novel. And it really there's so many papers now, it's not even that novel anymore. But it hasn't been commercialized, despite all the efforts. But there's definitely strong commercial and logistical constraints that are still in place. But I think a lot of that's just trying to, you know, you've unfortunately got a vertically integrated business model that there's not much in it for the suppliers at this stage. And it's the same, I'm doing my research on dash, you know, which is all the waste material. There's 600 million tons of stuff sitting around Australia that's perfectly good for use in concrete, but no one's going to touch it, right? And again, while the research we're doing will establish, we're pretty confident there's no issue using it. It's just going to cost a lot of money to extract it, process it, and get it into industry. So that's going to be the roadblock that again, I think.
And actually, have you seen that a little bit though in terms of research that's being done, in the sense that there's all these great ideas, but then when it comes to actually doing it and implementing it in the industry, is it like, oh, that's unrealistic? Yeah, okay. Is that a common theme?
No, it's fairly common.
Yeah.
So it's fairly common, someone will find, I suppose, just to get some numbers around it, like, so in a typical cubic meter of concrete, there's nearly 2 tons of stone, aggregate sand, right? So if you're saying we want to do something, you start understanding, well, if a concrete plant produces 100 cubic meters of concrete, you know, that's 200 tons of aggregate sand that go into a concrete plant per day, and you can put so much. So when you start talking at scale, so a lot of these opportunities are not at scale, because when you're a concrete manufacturer, this is a big at scale business. They're really transport businesses. Most of what they're doing is moving stuff from from a quarry to a concrete plant, from a concrete plant to your site. So, you know, you kind of go, the numbers aggregate to very big. So, you know, if someone's got an innovative idea, but he's got 30 tons of material, right? That's not even a blip, right? So some of that stacks up. So you're looking for bulk opportunities for mass application. So it was pretty hard, and that's what things recycled aggregates. We've known for decades that you could probably, or Olivia and I joke, secret is you can put 20% of almost anything in concrete is still going to be okay, guys. Right? So you could probably put a fair whack of recycled material into concrete, but you do lower the quality of the concrete. There's no doubt, like the resultant concrete is of lower quality as if you didn't have it in. But the market for recycled aggregate, you're fighting other applications like bedding, like road base, like others, where the impact on the material is far less. So what I find in a lot of the research is there's kind of maybe a missing bigger picture. Because you go, great, we can use that concrete, but you go, in reality, you could use it in road base with far less impact, and you still used it, right? You still reduced waste, it's still circular economy, but you haven't compromised the high risk, high quality product. So I think some of that thinking kind of gets lost because everybody is a little bit siloed with concrete with the pavement people. And there's a few suppliers out there maybe thinking a bit broader, but there's no. So there's interesting research done on ground granulated blast. So blast furnace slag is used in concrete as an SCM, it's in high demand. Every single ton that gets made gets used, right? It's a commodity market. They sell it on ships to the highest bidder. That's how it works, right? And then a little war started in Ukraine where most of Europe's slag came from. And then suddenly there's an international shortage of slag for concrete, right? So the price immediately, it's like fuel, right? Immediately the price jumps 30%. So now concrete suppliers are going, yeah, we don't really want to use this stuff, right? It's now in most places as expensive as cement, because there's a. So then you're kind of thinking, well, hang on a minute, are we actually being smart in how we're using it? Are we using it internationally in the right products to get the best sustainability value out of it? And no one can do that, really. So everyone just fights for their little bit, for their project to be sustainable. But you know, there's sort of some missing. But it's a you know, like I say, here's the problem. We can't get, you know, suddenly you sort of there's global thinking involved in some of this in the market. So
It's all well and good to have alternatives, but if you don't have access to them and they're not easily accessible, what's the point?
Yeah, no, that's right. And the same thing. So we have a product called, and don't ask me the same name, I'll just call it DBS. You can have a crack.
That's what you mean.
What do you mean? Just, we can't say the middle bit, it's too complicated.
Lithium waste.
Lithium waste. And so again, like this is a bulk, there's heaps of it. But it's all up at Broome in WA, so it's no good. It's no good. That's not where we make concrete, right? So it's in the wrong part of the world. So it's just, you know.
Brodie, what's your perception 7 years in? I mean, you've probably learned a lot in that 7 years. You obviously attend things like this all the time. What do you find as some of the barriers?
Look, I think Greg's probably hit the biggest one in terms of just the economies of scale and the access to it. I think there's probably that level of IP and protectionism that happens within the industry. If someone has new technology that they think they can commercialise, doesn't necessarily eventuate. And even that in itself prevents sharing of knowledge throughout the industry, which is a bit of a shame. Like, I mean, we had a presentation at one of our seminars the other night, which talked about an application or a technology that's only been around since the 70s, but realistically we've only got 2 good case studies out of it, and it promotes a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about it, but yet we just don't see it being used. So I think there's just that reluctance to be able to share information more globally, which will be a benefit, because I think, so we were talking about chloride extraction being one of those technologies out there available. Conventionally, we do a lot of concrete repair within the industry, we do a lot of infrared current cathode protection, but there's alternative means out there. And so if we can just promote that within the industry, it's better for everyone. Like, the technology becomes more readily available, becomes cheaper to do it, there's more people who are qualified in doing it. So, and it's horses for courses as well. That's the thing. All these technologies are promoted for a certain use cases Greg talks to. But unless we can just get that out there and create that scale that the market needs, which needs that knowledge sharing and a bit of that sharing the IP to some extent.
Olivia, I'm going to jump to you and ask the same question. In your experience, what do you find has been the hardest thing to get across in terms of moving forward, especially as we hit those kind of sustainability targets?
I think it's probably the disconnect sometimes between academic and industry. I think there's a lot of good work that's out there. Say, for instance, we can talk about the calcine clays, the dam ash. In theory, it's great. But I think when it comes to talking to manufacturers, they would say it's just not practical right now. It's not viable. And I think there's sometimes that misunderstanding as to what's viable right now. Like, we don't need dam ash. We have an abundance of fly ash that we still aren't using. Hence why we have dams. But then, there's another side that's basically saying you should be doing this. Like, I think there's a lot of miscommunication. I don't know if it's miscommunication or just misunderstanding as to what industry really wants right now and what they're moving towards, and then what the academic world is focusing on. I see that being quite prevalent in my 6 years being in industry. But I think also there's a lot around IP. I think every single company is doing a lot when it comes to decarbonizing their system, but not necessarily going to share that, because at the end of the day, a lot of us are competitors. As much as we do try to keep everyone afloat so the industry is afloat, there is still that element of IP. So I think that's always going to happen in the future. The only way in which we can kind of get around it is platforms like this. Like, for instance, CIA, that kind of platform, we had the Concrete was at 2025. That's where I actually really get to understand what other companies are doing, because a lot of us are researching the same things. Some of us are focusing on certain elements, others not so much in those areas. So you can, obtain a lot of your knowledge in those types of platforms. So I think that's why, for me, I always enjoy going to events like the CIA to really understand what's everyone else doing. Are we on the same page? Should I be focusing on this? Should I be growing my knowledge in that? So,
is there a frustration there knowing that other people are doing work that you're doing but you're not working together?
it's about to say no.
No?
For me, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I only say no is because, say for instance, I was very much in the cement industry, so we focused on testing a lot. We didn't really focus on, I guess, production scale and what's happening afterwards. But another company could be focusing on that. So at the end of the day, yes, we need to come together. But I do think it's good to focus on what you know you're good at, if that makes any sense. That being said, at the end of the day, we do need to work together. So I'm going to say yes and no. Change my answer to yes and no.
Thuc, as someone that did, went into academia, did your PhD, and then moved into industry, did you have that industry influence while you were doing your PhD?
Yes. I mean, just continue what just Olivia just said. I think to one of the points that I think is just to get everyone together is the hardest one for any applications. Like Greg mentioned about the commercial side of it, and to get one product out into practice applications, to have asset owner, concrete supplier, academia, everyone together. I mean, it's not global, but for local application as well. I think this is good for the local, and acknowledge of the new things, the sustainability, whatever we do for the good, do good for the local. To have everyone together, and those small projects we kick off, and then not necessarily have to be in a big scale, but those are, I think, some of the first steps that I think it's good. It's good to get a product out, and to have everyone together to get the confidence. The other thing is about sharing the IP. Another point about sharing, I think, is sharing the lesson learned. We normally just share the success, but for now, I think I feel a bit challenging for say NEXGen as well, is that on the LinkedIn we always see the successful things posted, but no one talk about what we have learned from what went wrong in certain projects. So I think every project or every company, they give their own lesson learned. It's not being necessarily shared to the other, and I think the other will keep repeating the same mistake. So IP is one thing, and then lesson learned to me is very important to be shared as well. Not always easy to share, but that I think is very important.
And I think that comes from a very researcher's brain as well, to say lessons learned, because research doesn't always bring the most favourable outcome, does it?
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Exactly. And it happens. It's happened a lot when we're doing the PhD for many research topics. It's not being favorable. Some people may have some professor may have an answer in advance before where they start the project, right? But eventually we have to accept the fact that, okay, it is good or not based on whatever we get. So that is the good side of research. That's based on that collaborations. I think SmartCrete have been doing great on that.
I feel like I'm like paying people to drop the name. I promise it's not.
When we mentioned about academia, right, the research and the industry, you sort of try to bring everyone in together, and not only for everyone to collaborate, but to share the knowledge as well. That's important.
Yeah. Just on that, I went to Concrete 23 and I saw someone presenting their outcome of their thesis, and when it got to Q&A time, he got absolutely torn to shreds, and it was horrific to watch. How do we get to a point where there's a neutral body making sure that the research that is being done actually does have, impact in this industry?
This, I don't know, this question's been asked, I don't know, my entire career. And
we haven't got a solution yet.
How you choose the PhD topics?
Because I think, yeah, look, there's and I think part of the problem is like there's different types of research and there's different types of things you do at a university. And so there's all the famous examples that make the media. We can't, taxpayers' money is spent trying to find out something ridiculous, right? Studied at the university, and they haven't really told you the whole story.
Yeah.
But there's, I suppose in our minds we've got to separate research that's pure science, that isn't trying to do anything commercial, that's about advancing human knowledge. Right, and that's not the same stuff that we're doing, and that this is all very, very academic. I remember seeing a little thing, and if this is all people's knowledge, then your PhD is just this little pinprick advancement, and some of it tries to be really push the envelope and break new barriers, right? So that's a type of research, and I think the mismatch we're talking here between universities and commercial, there's a bit of perception, because there's actually a lot of work that I see happen at universities already that is sponsored by industry, and industry is putting some money in, sponsoring PhD, or getting the university to engage in some research to understand their product more deeply or better, or undertake, there's a lot of I suppose, advanced technology and test methods available to universities that aren't available commercially. So if you want all the scanning and XRFs and SEM, EDXs and all these lovely things, you're really the people that, you're either going to pay an absolute fortune at PropLab, or you're going to pay a lot less and get access to all that through funding some research. So there is actually quite a lot of commercially based research around, and it's not bad. But again, you're asking, in that research, you're asking a very particular question that then has a particular set of tests and an answer. And that may not in and of itself advance the whole, as you were. Probably what I'm thinking is a lot of that work, and again, SmartCrete in the room, and we're all involved in it. But this is pulling, different authorities and organisations together to kind of give the research universities doing a bit of an industry bend, or be more commercial. And I guess we'll judge the success as we go. But there's another type of study which is like a meta study. And what I'm not seeing is that somebody's, and having said that though, the Australian standards have TS 199, someone help me out, which is the geopolymer addendum to AS 3600. So that's out there now, it's published. to help designers design concrete. So this is it's actually, you know, a major step towards the ability to use, I'll say geopolymers commercially. That there actually is a standard. Because one of the problems was a designer couldn't design to the Australian standard, the product. Now you can. So that means consultants and us kind of have some coverage if we're going to use geopolymer concrete in a design. Whether the next part is whether you can actually buy it or not, that's a separate question. But you can actually design with it now. You can design it. So, and I suppose the release of that document is built on, I don't know, the last 10 years of good research that at a meta level is, so there's sort of, maybe for a lot of these products where we're missing, it's the sort of study of the study. So they don't go do the research, but they kind of, the other ones that are really good at that is Rooyen. So Rooyen put out what they call state-of-the-art reports, where they'll do a meta-study of all the research related to a topic, and they'll collate it all into a document that's usable by industry, that's supposed to be used. So the Rooyen reports are really good. They're not cheap, but they're pretty good that way. So that's out there. So I think there are examples of it having come about. It's just, I think people get frustrated with the time frames because, you know, we've been talking about, I don't know, CIA guys, geez, we all a bit sick and tired of geopolymer now, aren't we? We don't want to talk about it anymore. And it's taken us to get to there that it's just dominated research to the point we now have it to the standard.
Well,
So,
how does that sit though? I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to this point, but if we're talking about geopolymers and we're like, I'm using it as an example, I'm not trying to promote geopolymers or anything like that, purely an example, but I feel like this conversation has been happening for decades and now we're at a point where the standards have come through. But then are we already outdated? Like, shouldn't we be thinking, like, if we're talking about pond and fly ash, and I know it's in great supply and like, we can use it, but should we be thinking 10 years, 20 years ahead when that runs out and we don't have the supply? Like, what's the alternative there?
see,
Is this controversial?
No, it's not controversial, but I suppose, once again, we have a client who is thinking like that, who's going, in 10 years' time, the coal power station's going to be closed. We've got to do something with this. So that work's starting now. With a view that to the future. So it's not that it doesn't happen, but again, it's a good possibility. By the time 10 years comes, it's just maybe by then it's not commercially viable. It's not commercially viable today, but they're banking on a market change over the next 10 years that will make it viable. So, because if you think about it, if you're going to build the plant, you're going to have to start, and you want the plant operational in 10 years' time, you're going to have to start building it in 5 years. So they've got 5 years, the next 5 years is sort of DAs, studies, you know, viability studies, planning, design, so that in 5 to 6 years you can start construction, so that in 10, 11 years you actually got an entity. So that's sort of the time frame of getting some of these operations up and running. So you do need to be, so there are organisations that are thinking ahead, but you know, the problem is that, you know, within that reality, if economic forces may at any time change, that gets shelved and put aside to wait for something else.
I might weigh in on that one because I think like the other part from our view as an asset owner is that Australia inherently is risk adverse. Like a lot of our clients are risk adverse as well. So to be able to like push new technologies into the market, there needs to be a level of acceptance and risk sharing that happens. And so like you look at geopolymer, probably the example of it. Like we've been looking at the technology and the application of it for a long time, but the UK is so much quicker to adopt it and trial it, and they're so much further ahead.
Yeah.
And like I suppose it doesn't necessarily apply to every single case, but I think there probably is that the sharing that needs to go on, or that level of risk sharing that needs to go on. Like it takes probably customers and clients like ourselves who are willing to take that level of risk to be able to try new products in selected settings where it's controlled, but it gives the industry that understanding of what's actually happening in the real world environment, how it applies, so just to keep driving that further and further ahead instead of it being in lab settings. Because we keep coming back to that same point. TMR will turn around and say, well, where has it been applied? We don't have an answer because we give us that application to try it. So I think it'll take time, but it probably needs the industry to shift the mentality a little bit.
Yeah, like there needs to almost be a neutral Switzerland that can kind of take the risk out a little bit and actually try and push this forward a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
I think also right now, there's a beauty in some of the changes that are inevitably happening right now in the economy. For instance, power stations, they have an end date. We're definitely still going to have fly ash for a long period of time, but it's going to get to a point where the power stations are going to be shut because everyone's talking about renewable energy and things like that. We can talk about that. It still takes time to build dams and stuff like that, but we will get to a stage where we might not have virgin fly ash, or we might have a small amount. So we will have to start digging into the ground. It probably won't be 10 years from now, maybe 15 or more. But I think that kind of forces us to kind of gain knowledge and to understand this new-ish. I'm going to say newish because a lot of it is fly ash, but there is still a lot of unknowns around dam ash. But we'll have to eventually learn about some of these new products in order to, I guess, decarbonize our industry, because that's what we're moving towards. I think there is a beauty in some of the inevitable changes that are likely to occur. And that probably will force us as an industry to not necessarily not be risk averse, but start questioning a few things. Because I think we need to always remind ourselves that there was a time where there wasn't fly ash. I've talked to Greg about that many times. No one wanted fly ash in concrete for a long time.
No, for a long time. So in the early 2000s, I have a distinct memory of a engineer ringing up and say, make sure you don't put any of that fly ash crap in my concrete. Right? So now it's there was a time when it was seen as a waste. You sequestering waste material into the concrete, and it's no good for it.
Do you think that change is coming too late though? That's I feel like if you're trying to push it in 2003 and we're only now thinking about, okay, well what's next? Why? I guess it comes back to this risk averse thing, right?
We're a conservative industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that the turnaround time is shortening. Because that was, that was like 26 years ago. It's having a moment. Yeah. When you kind of go, look, that we talk about geopolymer, but we've only got in Queensland, the late 1990s, we basically, I don't think TMR specified fly ash until 95. Anybody recall?
95, 96, yeah.
Yeah, 95, 96 is when it entered the main road. So prior to that, you weren't even allowed to use it in main roads, right? So we kind of go, fly ash has only been used in TMR concrete for 30 years, and now we're allowed to use geopolymer. So, and that's happened in a much shorter time. And there's probably a way more risky proposition in terms of what we know about the material over 100 years as I'm. So I'd say that the knowledge sharing is more. The ability to disseminate knowledge has grown. And the turnaround time of some of these things, because we look backwards, and I guess in my experience, looking back decades, you kind of go, yeah, definitely. And I think the attitudes changed a lot, but the changing of the guard as we move through generations in a way, probably a lot more, tolerant of change.
I'm gonna pass it over to everyone for Q&A in a moment, but just I guess some final thoughts out of this. I guess my key takeaways are we need education and knowledge transfer, and we almost need someone to be pushing the envelope a little bit, trying to make sure that we're doing more a very calculated risk, maybe take calculated risks so we can kind of move forward. Lifelong learning is the thing. What are your, I guess, what would you tell yourself, I suppose, or what are your ambitions going forward? Greg gave us homework, which we all have to do, but what would be your key takeaways in terms of looking at your growth as you're looking at it?
When I was a grad, one of the first things that was told to me is to be like a sponge, try to absorb as much. And I think that's just something that I want to continue for the rest of my life, especially in my career. Just to learn from others, talk to others, and be an askaholic. Ask a lot of questions.
I love that.
So the same, ask question, a lot of questions, definitely. And at the same time, I think everyone needs support. So someone asks a question, someone else needs to answer. So to enable someone to ask the question, they need a lot of support as well. So as the industry or as a team, whatever, we need to provide that sort of support. The seniors should be the one who say, I don't know, first sort of things, for others to ask the question, I think. So yeah, that's the key.
For me, it's probably just finding those people within your network that you can lean on who will help guide your career direction. I mean, probably a bit symbolic to say it, but early on in my career, I probably more tried to chase the people that would help give me those good projects, give me those good opportunities. Like, it wasn't necessarily about making the most money and chasing every job that you possibly can. But I was probably fortunate to have people that gave me those chances. So when I just came out of being a grad, someone told me and said, oh, look, I can see you've got some aspirations to try and manage. You seem to manage your time well. Would you want to be a team lead? And like at that point in time, I was like 2 years out of university, I showed brief. Like it was a daunting task. I mean, particularly being an engineer, you think, oh, everything's a technical solution to everything. And that's where your career trajectory is, particularly in consulting. But then you appreciate, oh, there's actual other career pathways out there. Leadership is one of them, management is one of them. And so I think through that gave me a wealth of other opportunities and experiences. So I think it is trying to find those people that will help encourage your own career and professional growth if you can.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to your point around networking and creating that community. And I think, like, as someone that didn't work in the industry coming in, I always say this, it's like one of the loveliest communities to be a part of, because I feel like I never ask a dumb question, even though I probably do. Probably ask a million. But I think it is just such a supportive industry, and I think we can just kind of come more together and work together. Hopefully we'll get there. Round of applause for our panelists. Now move to anyone that has any questions.
What are you doing PhD on?
Damage. No, not even joking.
You talked about having these new technologies that may not be commercially or practically viable. How is that something that you're integrating into what you're doing with your PhD?
Well, I've really got it. So I'm doing a PhD that, the Venn diagram of we've got BG&E, I've got clients and work in this space. I've got the CIA, and I've got all of these groups. So I'm kind of doing something where it's related to what I do at the same time. Whether or not, well, yeah, look, I mean, so, you kind of drawing in different sources to kind of pull it all together. I suppose because the topic kind of chose itself in a way. So what the topic was around, and we've been talking to the university about it and doing some work on it, based on some client work. And then there was this opportunity that said, well, why don't you put in for a grant? And if you get the grant, so be it. And I was like, look, probably never written this kind of stuff before, never done it. What's the chances of getting it, So I had a crack at writing it up with the university and put the proposal into, the government. And then it was a case, I sat back and it got submitted, and I thought, if I'm not successful in getting a study grant, that's it. I won't worry about it. I won't worry about studying. I'll carry on doing what I'm doing. But then I did get awarded the grant. And that was the moment of realization of what I've just done. But yeah, so there's funding. So basically, once you've got the funding to do the research, you're kind of committed now. But having said that, with the, and there's definitely, it's industry related government funding, so you need industry. So BG&E are basically my sponsor, and then our friends downstairs, the Stanwell Corporation, are also supporting the work.
Yeah.
So between them, the idea is that you come out at the end, and it's sort of not too far off the model. You've got industry support plus the big university, and then you just throw down there and go ask those deep questions and get into it. So, and again, I suppose, is it entirely the most groundbreaking study that come out of the world? Probably not. But the aim is to just advance that knowledge a little bit further, with the aim that by the time we're running out of commercial ash, that authorities like Transport New South Wales and Main Roads can look at a group of studies, that, because there's quite a few other people also studying the same thing, different aspects, can assess. There's a body of knowledge that would allow it to be used commercially. You kind of understand you one paddle on the canoe, and it's all of you together that got to steer it in the right direction. That's kind of where we're at with that. So there's a few fundamental questions about how it operates. Does it work the same? Is it the same as that, or is it different? I guess the study's just going to drill deeper and deeper and deeper into that one question. It says you're literally going to spend 6 years while asking one question.
Can I make a quick comment on this? Does everybody know what dam ash is? Yeah, everybody, yeah, most people would.
Most
Yeah.
people know there.
I didn't, not very long ago.
Yeah, no,
And so-
yeah. So
Well, there's our education.
I actually
There we
watched,
go,
I actually watched
yeah.
a YouTube video on it and was interested in it, and I didn't know you were doing that on your master's, so I thought, wow, this is cool. But then you talk about, like Olivia said, is that we still have a lot of ash, and the plants aren't shut down yet, but they're going to be shut down.
They're going to be shut down.
And we need to have a plan, so it's really interesting. And if you don't know, ask Greg, he'll tell you what it is.
Or we can wait. When are you due to publish?
Oh, yeah, not for years. I
2032.
am doing
The
a podcast, by the way. This is part-time.
Next year, complete 2027.
Yeah.
No, essentially, there'll probably be 4 or 5 papers published by the end with them. They all get collated together to be the final.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yep. I'll ask the non-Greek panellists first. Because Greg had everyone's had conversations around where to get information from and how to learn. In an honest reflections with yourselves, do you do enough knowledge sharing of interesting little tidbits that you learn or find out, rather than wait for people to come and have an opportunity to share that? Do you write these down? Do you put through internal knowledge sharing? Do you have a threshold where you say, actually, this should be a white paper that gets put up and put forward somewhere? Do you think you do enough of that? Or do you have mechanisms in place?
Yeah, run by me.
No.
I mean, so the answer is probably no for the most part. Yeah, no. Is it enough though? I mean, I think everyone's going to always say no. Like, your time's finite, so you wish you could share more information. Like at the port, we're probably fortunate where we set aside time every month, call it all of our engineers, and we call it NEXGen, so we'll trademark that name if anyone wants it. But that's the opportunity for us to talk about interesting things that we've learned, interesting projects that people are working on, putting up challenges that people may be facing in their own projects. Because we're just fortunate to have 20 different engineers in the room talking about all these different things, coming from different backgrounds and experiences. I mean, for me personally, the thing that I started doing quite a number of years ago is, it's not the Microsoft Excel, but OneNote, I just started putting all of these different tabs together, just saying, oh, these are the coding learnings that I have, these are the cathodic protection, concrete repair, whatever else. And just trying to capture all those little things that I picked up along the way. Where it was just something as simple as like I had a conversation with one of the coding experts. I said, my understanding was that only epoxies get chalking when they degrade under UV. And he goes, you can get it through polyurethanes. And that was one of those gems you pick up along the way that someone's just shared with you through an informal conversation of just trying to document. So it's never going to be enough, but trying your best throughout. And I think, as Greg said, just using some of the tools like AI is a great one for it these days. But you probably just have to be a bit skeptical of what comes out sometimes.
Yeah, don't trust
and don't use it. And don't go use another AI to vet the AI.
I'm going to just jump in on that just from, I guess, a different lens. And I think internal sharing is great, but also how do we make sure that people are aware? Like for me, this is what I'm thinking as you ask that, is how do we actually make sure there is like a source for people to go to? Like even this event, as we promote it, like it probably could have gone wider and we probably could have brought more people into this, but how do you actually, I guess, maybe someone knows the answer to this, but I think it's like, where is the point that we can go to actually find a lot of the information, which is, I think, actually probably lacking a bit. Do we feel that way?
I think the only thing I would say, something I learned very early on, is the importance of relationships. Not to, I guess, just to help you to excel in your career, but also people know who to run to. Like Fiona, she's very good when it comes to corrosion, so people know to go to her. So I think it's growing a network, but also telling people. It's also about sharing, so people know why they need to run to you. So I think there's that aspect.
Yeah.
That I think people do quite well.
Being more vocal about your specialties, yeah.
Correct.
And then I think just want to add to that, for sharing, it's not necessary that when someone asks the question and you need to give a direct answer, that it's got to be like this, like that, but maybe just point them to the right things, to right source to find the answer, So it is going to be another way of learning, instead of getting a direct answer and then they forget about it in other weeks.
I've got a question for you then. How did fly ash come into your world? How did you come across it? And why do you think you hadn't sooner?
So I've been in concrete since I was 5. That's the first time I can remember it. But did I know what fly ash was? And I'm not a materials specialist. I always got concrete and it was wet and it got hard and gray. So I was that guy. So I just trusted the people that make the concrete, and I used it. And when there was a problem, found the solution. And so yeah, fly ash was one of those things that I learned slowly about what it does. And slowly is probably a good word for fly ash. But yeah, fly ash, and I kind of do know what tan ash is, but I didn't know what I didn't know it came from I didn't understand where it came from, and it comes from coal. So but I don't understand how it works and what it looks like, and yes, I have done some research on it just for fun to learn, but I get the question, but it's always just been what it was.
Yeah.
I've accepted it.
I think it comes...
That was my takeaway. You went and learned about it just for fun, guys.
I personally think we've just hit on a key problem here, is that the entire ecosystem's not talking to each other. No?
I think it's more so like, concrete is you stick to what you know. Like, that needs to look a certain way afterwards, that you don't really, it's not so much that you don't care, you just expect to be given it in a in a sound manner. You don't really need to go down the chain as to how is cement made, how is concrete made. You just Just depends on
How do
where
we
you are.
ignite that though? I know it may not be necessary, but is it? No?
I mean, I think Greg also picked up a point earlier in his presentation, like one of his program points on the board, just about trying to challenge yourself to present. Like, those opportunities aren't going to present themselves all the time, and it's not very often. So someone will come ask you, "Oh, go do a presentation on this." You know what you've learned, you know what projects you've worked on, you know what may be interesting within the industry. Put yourself out there a little bit and share that knowledge. Like, it's invaluable to everyone else. And it could be as simple as just sending an email into the Concrete Institute and saying, "Right, I've done an interesting presentation on this. If there's any topics coming up related to it, let me know. I'm more than happy to present." So you probably just have to take that leap yourself, put a bit of courage out there.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, do terrible the first time, and you'll do better
You
the
get
next
better.
time. I'll just have a quick learning story for me. I started 10 years ago with the company I'm with now, but I was 14 and a half years with the company I was with before. And I came in as a very seasoned field engineer, construction engineer, and my boss said, "Okay, I need you to go do a presentation on," I can't remember what it was, I did joints, concrete, slab and grout joints, but I said, "Okay," and he said, "We're gonna practice." And I stood up in front of my colleagues that I could talk to directly to their face, and I just blew this. And it was only people from work, but I got up there and I couldn't talk. And they were just looking at me like, "What is wrong with you?" Because I could have a normal conversation with them, but even like right now when I'm talking, 10 years ago, I couldn't have done this. So just continue learning and take those challenges, and when the boss says, "Get up there and practice," and I studied too. I studied this presentation and I still couldn't do it up in front of these people I knew. But now I can just talk to anyone.
Kind of comes back to your point about professional development as well, like jumping in as a team leader. Sorry, I feel like you were going to say something. I'm like,
I don't know, I
With
just
that?
want to add to Kit there. One good things that I learned, I think, being more in the industry is that I'm more comfortable with the things I don't know.
yeah.
In the early days, I think it is very challenging to accept that. Not easy to ask the question as well, because when
You don't know the question.
Yeah.
If you don't know the question, how do you ask the question?
Yeah.
Exactly, and the fear of being look stupid as well. For example, to ask stupid question, that is, it's never the case. So I think it's any question to be
But
asked.
you always got that though, didn't you? You always figured it out, and you can ask the first question, and if that wasn't quite right, someone would like, let me help you understand what you're trying to ask.
Exactly.
And you get there, because there's people that will help you get there.
And many people, they have the same question as well. They're not willing to ask, so
I think it's probably also an important point to touch on, like you have to ask it in the right way. Like at some point you're going to be that experienced, what do we call it, experienced generation, is that the term you use? Like on the flip side, you're the one asking those questions. You don't want to be the person that's sitting in the room trying to tear that poor PhD student apart. Like, we're trying to encourage the community, as you say. So I think it's probably just worth keeping that in mind as well, like as we go through, that everyone start off at the same point. You don't want to see anyone getting torn apart on the stand, but that's what discourages people from presenting.
Yeah. Any other questions? Everyone's dying for a drink now, right? Ready? Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for this.